Howdy folks, welcome back to Boonedockery. Today I'm going to be making a Bushcraft workstation. Folks, as you can see, the old tripod can be used for a lot more than just suspending a cook pot over your fire. And the workstation I'm going to build today is going to be comprised of two very large tripods, a center pole, and then cross members to use as an actual work surface. Okay folks, the rationale behind what I'm doing today is I want to build an elevated platform, a workspace, for whatever I may want or need to do while I'm wild camping in this particular location. The school year has started. It's off to a very rough start, and I know that I'm not going to be able to find the time to get away like I want to as far as my wild camping and things go. So I'm going to go ahead and try to establish this is my primary camp, try to get a few semi-permanent structures built so that way I'm going to be able to cache some things here, keep some things here, so that way if I get the opportunity to come out, I'll just come out, set up what I've got here, and roll from there. The structure I'm going to be building is two tripods with a center pole going across the top for stability. I'm going to be adding cross members on the two tripods, again for stability. And then I'm going to lash a pole going across on two sides of the tripod, and I'm going to build layers of branches on the interior of that to act just as an elevated platform. Just something I can work on things eat, whatever, so that way I'm up off the ground and not having to kneel. My knees, they're getting worse, and I need to ensure that I make the most of what I've got while I've still got it, and be able to have a decent workspace to do that with. Now I see a pretty decent one right here, and right here at the base, it's a decent diameter. It might be just a little bit thicker than what I need, but not much. I think this will be fine. And as you can see, it's very, very straight all the way up. It is a maple, which is also what I'm looking for. I'm looking for hardwood. And it is in a cluster of other young trees. So I'm going to be thinning them out a little bit, which is responsible timber management. And I'm also going to be able to get probably 3 good long usable sections out of that. So I'm going to go ahead and start harvesting this and show you how I'm going to go ahead and process these, and then I'll go ahead and get busy and get all the rest I need. I need to have 3 for each tripod, and those are going to be, I'm going to estimate between 7 and 8 feet. Haven't made my mind up yet, but a minimum of 7 feet. And then I'm going to also need, so that's going to be a total of 6. I want to need 1 the same length for the cross pole, the top bar, and then I'm going to have 1 for either side of the platform. And so that's going to be a total of 9. That's going to be about the same diameter, the same length. And then I'm going to use a lot of the smaller ones that are on the very ends. If I can get them to the decent length, I'm going to use those to build the actual surface of that elevated platform. Well, being responsible means you have to be selective. And being selective means you have to travel a whole lot further between potential trees to harvest them. Wow. Wow. This is taking a whole lot longer than I anticipated, and a lot more energy than I had anticipated. Now, in order to do all the lashing I've got to do with these things, I'm going to be using jute. This is a heavier quality, has more fibers in it than most jute. And one of the reasons why I'm using this jute as opposed to 550 cord is the expense. This is going to take a lot of cordage to do all this stuff, and in order to cost effectively do what I need to do, I'm using jute. There's a couple of benefits to jute, one of which is it's biodegradable, it's natural. So if by any chance something happens to me and I wind up having to not be able to come back and take all these things apart, it's going to naturally decompose and go back to the soil. The other thing is it's a little easier to work with than 550 cord. 550 cord are several cords all wrapped together in a sleeve, and sometimes it's just a little bit difficult to get it to go in where you want it to go. Jute, on the other hand, does a lovely job at that. I'm going to leave a little over a foot, about 15 inches here at the top. Now, if I was using 550 cord, this would not be going together nearly as easy as it is. Jute can get in much smaller little nooks and crannies than 550 cord can. All I did was I pre-measured a 3 double arm width span, and that's manageable for me. And if I need to do more, I just go ahead and add more to it and continue lashing. And I'm going to use a little bit more than I would normally use with 550 cord, just simply because this isn't nearly as strong as 550 cord. And anywhere along the way I want to reinforce this, add more to it, I always can. This will be enough to get me started and get things rolling the way I want them to. I have the tripods erected, they're lashed together, they're all right where I want them. And you might be asking yourself, John, why in the world are these things so huge? Well, the reason they're big is because I want to be able to do a lot of stuff with these. If I want to hang game from the center of these, or from the ridge pole that's going to go across to butcher it, I can do that. If I want to fashion some hangers out of branches that have forks in them and hang gear from them, I can. If I want to reinforce this and put a lattice work in there to be able to put water sources, things like that in, pots, pans, whatever, I can. If I want to hang anything along the ridge pole, I can. Now, this span here is the distance where I'm going to be making my work surface, my countertop, so to speak. Now this span is almost 3 feet across. I'm probably not going to need that much space, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to reinforce this and probably have a countertop come out to the edge. It's probably going to be about 18 inches deep, which is going to be plenty. But if I need to add more, I can. Everything is here. Everything's ready to go. This is a monument to potential. So now I need to get that ridge pole on there. Oh. Well folks, the last scene you probably saw was me standing right over there trying to pull the ridge pole over to the top of the other tripod. Well, I was using a piece of firewood that was still here from the last time I camped to stand on in order to reach it. It worked fine for the first time I used it. The second time, when I was over there, it went out from underneath of me, and as it was going down, the ridge pole came down, and as I landed, I knocked the tripod, and the tripod came down on top of me, knocked the wind out of me, and it was not a good day. It's Saturday now. It was Monday when I had come out to film, and I was very much out of sorts, and I shouldn't have come out at all. To film anyway. I should have come out and just try to find my comfort and my calm just in the beauty of God's creation, and I didn't do it. I had to get that video. I had to get that video up. You know, and that's the wrong reason. That's the wrong reason to do this. And let me tell you, the weight of the world was crushing me. Some events that were going on were just heartbreaking. Some of the things that were being done by particular people were idiotic. And it all started weighing on me. It all started weighing on me. And as a result I got very little decent footage last Monday. But what I'm going to do today is I'm out here, I'm enjoying God's creation, and I'm going to do what I can do. And if it winds up being a multi-part video, or it takes me 2 more weeks to get this thing finished, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. The weight of the world is off my shoulders now. I am in a good place, and it's time to get some things done. The first order of business is to get myself some breakfast. The breakfast menu is going to consist of one of my reenacting favorites. It's going to be bacon, fried bread, and fried apples. My local grocer didn't have the jowl bacon that I used to get, so I'm just using regular bacon today. First order of business is to heat up some water. A couple different reasons for that. I want some pretty warm water for my fried bread batter or dough, and then I'm going to, of course, have coffee. The The warm water is going to help that dough rise just a little bit. And while that's doing that, then I can enjoy myself a good cup of joe. Now there are a million different recipes for fry bread or any of the equivalents out there. I just use a combination of self-rising flour. If you have self-rising flour, a little bit of flour with some baking powder, some corn flour, and a little bit of cornmeal. I'm just going to use my GSI cup to pour the hot water in there a little bit at a time. And what we're going to do, we're just going to knead that together, and I want to have a doughy consistency. I don't want it to be liquidy, and that right there might be just the perfect amount. I found a nice little spot. Direct sunlight's coming down through the trees. I've got my mountain house koozie all laid out nice and flat. My dough is on it. It's absorbing some of the heat. And as that gets some of that heat from the sun and sits a little while, get a little bit of that rise going on, I'm going to go ahead and start off on lashing my ridge pole to my tripods. Now the type of lashing I'm going to do could be any combination of diagonal lashing, Japanese lashing. I just more or less look at what I'm dealing with, and then I go from there. But first of all, I'm going to coil that around where it's good and tight. So one thing that jute is it holds really, really well. I've worked with bank line, things like that, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, bank line gives me fits. But you know, it is what it is. And being in this particular position, you know, lashing the ridge pole to the tripod, you have to work through these little tiny holes. So this takes a little while longer. But it's all good. Right now I'm working with a double arm length just to get it on there, and if I need more, then I can always add more to it, but it's just a lot easier to work with one shorter one than one really long one. And I'm going to need to have another one. That's no problem. I'll go ahead and measure off another section and finish that lashing up. There, my first lashing of the ridge pole to the tripod is complete. I'll go ahead and do the other one. And here is lashing number 2. Looks a little prettier than the first one. Same amount of cordage, 4 double arm widths. There she is. The basic armature is finished. Now I'm going to start adding cross members for support, and also to get things ready for the work platform that I plan on building on there. But first, I'm going to check on my fry bread dough. The fry bread dough is looking pretty good. I'm going to let it rest a little while longer. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you how I'm going to reinforce these tripods for stability. I'm going to have cross members here, and then on one other side about the same height. They're going to be a little bit lower than this, just a little bit above the knee. That's going to give it stability, and if we need to be able to reach a little higher, that gives us a step up in order to be able to do that. If we're going to lash on a pot hook or something like that, we'll be able to do that with a decent of a bit more stability. Now when I get to the point to where I'm reinforcing the workstation side, I'm going to have one cross member going across the bottom and then one up a lot higher about the same height that I'm going to be creating the workstation platform. Now, in order to hold the poles into position, I'm going to make a little locking cord and just pull a little slip knot through that. And what that's going to do is going to facilitate me being able to wrap that around the pole at the height that I want it. And that's exactly where I want it, right about knee height. And then I'm literally just going to wrap it around there several times, and then right around like that, almost a lashing, but that's going to be sufficient for me to go ahead and do the other side and double check, make sure everything's where I need it to be, and then I will remove one, do the lashing, remove the other, and do the lashing. This just gives me an opportunity to be able to see it in position before I go through all the work of lashing them out. Now I've got them temporarily secured to the tripod. They are exactly the height that I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead, remove one, start lashing it. And when I'm finished with that, I'll move on to the next one. But it is pretty much exactly where I wanted it to be, which was right about knee height. As you can see, the dough is just about doubled in size from the time I first kneaded it up. It's good and warm, it's ready to go. I'm going to let this rest and go ahead and start the first half of the bacon. Just throwing it out there, of course, you know you don't have to have any leavening whatsoever to your fry bread. Like I said, there's 1,000,001 recipes out there for fry bread, all kinds of other of the equivalent pancakes. We're going to start off with a little bacon. About half of the bacon that I brought with me. And I'm just basically trying to create enough oil for the fry bread not to stick. Get that down a little bit further. And of course, once I have enough for my fry bread, I'll have enough to fry up again for my apples. Use my little micro tongs that the missus got me, gifted me so wonderfully. Now normally I use jowl bacon to do this. That's what I used when I was reenacting, and our local store didn't have any, so I just went ahead and got their regular double smoked thick slice bacon, which is fantastic. Well, the bacon's looking pretty good. It'll be done in just a minute or two, and then I'll put the fry bread on. You know, this is most definitely done enough for me. Don't want to risk them getting burnt. Yeah, they're looking good. This will put them in this little GIS or GSI container here. Get that bacon grease all around there. I forget what brand this little skillet is. I picked it up at REI when I was backpacking in Colorado. Put the lid on there. And now for the fry bread, which should go up pretty quick. It's a little sticky, but that's okay. Just going to turn it out on itself. Should hear a nice sizzle. Pat that down just a little bit. Let that brown real quick. I'll flip it. Fall apart a little bit, that's okay because it's going to be broken into smaller parts anyway. Get some of the grease get around through there. Just a couple minutes, it'll be done. Okay, the fried bread is now done. Nice and golden. Only a couple spots a little dark, that's okay. Now I'm going to be using some of this to put my fried apples over. And then the rest of it I'm just going to eat on the side with my bacon. Okay, this one's a little bit stubborn. That's okay, I'm persistent too. Those would be good with the apples, those little crumblies. Okay, next thing, fry up the rest of the bacon. While the bacon's frying, I'm just going to go ahead and slice up this apple using the lid for my bacon for a cutting board. Let's cut these in wedges. I'll clean the core up out of them once I get them all sliced. The bacon is done. And shake off as much of this bacon grease as I can. Well, as much of that grease as I can possibly get. Now, time to start adding the apples. I'm going to start putting it in the greasy areas first, and that'll force some of the other grease around them. And back in my reenacting days, this was breakfast. Protein, carbohydrates, fat. It's what you need for a good breakfast. There we go. Good, let those cook for a few minutes there. Let them get a little browned on the bottom. Start releasing some of those sugars, and I'll flip them over. Everything's going on pretty well. Getting a little color to them. Starting to get soft, which is what we want. We want those sugars to break down. And as they do, they're going to start creating a nice thick sauce. At that point, I'm going to need to add just a little bit of water, because if I don't, that thick sauce will burn. It'll make it very difficult to clean the skillet, and also ruin my breakfast. Yeah, one more here. Yeah, move them around a little bit. Let some of these ones that's a little lighter get in here. Some of the darker ones over to the side. Right there. Get in there. Get in there. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. It's like apple pie filling. Now, I went ahead and turned off the burner, and I'm going to go ahead and serve this up on my fry bread, and then have my other half of fry bread with my bacon. All this would have been so much easier if I had my workstation completed, and that's why I'm building this, for stuff like this. There we go. All the apples are in there. Now, for just a second, I'm going to scrape out all that wonderful gelatinous goodness. Look at that. Look at it. Look at it. You want some of it, don't you? Well, you can't have it. It's all mine. I'm going to finish scraping my goo. I'll be right back. Now I'm going to make you all jealous by eating some of it. The apples are super, super, super tender. Let's mush them up in a little bit of that fry bread. The smaller pieces I crumbled up. Get some of those juices in there. Some nice thick syrupy goo that the apples made. Apples are completely cooked. And I know I should save my dessert for after my main entree, but I'm going to taste it because I made it and I can. Ain't no rules. Okay, now got a good bit of fry bread in here. Look at it. Look at that. Look at it. Don't know if it's in focus or not. Probably not. No, my luck. But that's okay. There it goes. It tastes like apple cobbler. There's just that little tiny hint of smokiness and saltiness from the bacon. This is top notch. Try a little bit of my bacon and fry bread. Still warm. This is hearty, and I really like having a blend of wheat flour with the corn flour, a little bit of cornmeal, has a little bit of crisp to it, and of course I can't leave out the bacon. Oh, little pseudo bacon sandwich here. This is going to be so good. This is exactly why I need my workstation. It was such a pain in the behind. I had a piece of the same piece of firewood that was standing on. I fell on Monday trying to put that center pole, that ridge pole up, and you know, breeze and everything. Everything would just be so much easier if I had a stable platform that I didn't have to lean over all the time and things like that. And it's going to be. It's going to be. I will continue work as soon as I finished eating, and we'll see how much we can get done today. Now I've lashed the supports for this first tripod, and I want to show you something. when you're using jute and you pull it out of the center, it's very, very curly. And what will happen is you will have a curly, knotty mess. Not a knotty, but filled with knots. Now look at this. Look at this. That's not going to be much fun to work with. However, if at any point on, if you could use a tree branch, you could use the tripod. I'm just going to use this bottom section here. Put some tension on this and pull it through, and the heat from the friction is going to help straighten that out so it won't curl back up again. Now you may have to do what I'm doing right now, and that's untie a little knot or so. That's okay. All part of the fun. And this was a good one. There we go. That's what happens constantly when it's straight out of the spool. And the reason I feed it through the middle of the inside of the spool is because it feeds easier, and you don't have to worry about when it falls over, and it will fall over, that it's going to unravel. Because it's from the inside. One more knot here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Do it all the way through. Now look at this. No knots, no curls. That right there is going to be super easy to use compared to right out of the spool if you don't do that. I just wanted to give you another good quick detail of the lashing before we move on and start doing all of the cross members. I did a cross, each 4 wraps. I went around, under, around, over, around 4 times, and then 4 times wrap between this one and tied it off. After I lashed down each one of the cross member supports, I'm going to trim it off about 1 width out. I can use these to hang things on, rest things against, things like that. So I'm not ever going to cut them really short. I want them to stick out just a little bit. And I'm not worried about people running into them so much because they will be going out about the same angle as the tripod. So I'm going to cut mine off about right here. And any of these I'm going to retain because I can use them for something. I'm going to go ahead and put all of the remaining cross member supports in, and then I'll be ready to move on to the main work area. Let me get you up to speed. So far I have attached 3 cross members for support on each one of the tripods, which was, so far I'm looking at about 100 yards worth of jute cordage thus far, estimate. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to attach the cross members that are going to eventually be my work platform. I got the height exactly where I want it on both sides, right about belly button level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach the back portion first, work my way out until I run out of lumber, and we're going to take it from there. I may be able to be just fine with being able to pull it out about 12 to 15 inches, maybe 18 inches. That would be approximately halfway the distance, and that's more than sufficient for the workspace that I need. Well, this is the beginnings of my workstation. I'm going to be lashing a center bar through the center to pull all these up so they'll all be on the same level. Right now they're swayed, they're bent, everything. but once I get them lashed down to the center beam down through here, crossbar, to get them all equaled out and lashed down there, there might be a little bit of dip or things like that here, but what I plan on doing is bringing some things out and caching them here. So if we need to do meat processing, something like that, I have a cutting board and it'll sit on here perfectly fine. If we need something flat to be working on, I have an ISO mat. Unfold it, you have a relatively flat surface to work on. And just to even it all out, I'm going to space the bars out just a little bit. I'll bring you in closer, let you see what I got so far, and over a period of time I'll fill it in, and it's a possibility it'll go all the way out, but right now it looks to be about 15 inches, possibly 18, but right around 15. This is it laid out before I start lashing anything down. I got about double finger width apart from each other. You can see some dip, some raise up. By the time they're all lashed together, they're all going to be on the same level in the middle, and over time it might level out a little bit more, but at least we'll bring everything up to where it's at least usable in the short term. Well, this is the morning of day 3 working on this, and it's almost finished. I've got things tied down but not lashed. Here I got all my center lashing done, and I'm already being able to use it, even not being completely finished yet. Probably got a couple more hours in on it from all my final lashing and everything, but I was able to make my breakfast on here, my coffee this morning. And check this out, I got my jute cord spooled down there. I've got it draped over the ridge pole, so I can just go ahead and feed it out, and it will straighten as I go to measure my lengths out. And this has been working like a charm. So already it's showing its benefits of being here. Last night I slept in my LiteFighter 1 tent with a U.S. Army cot, and it was ridiculously comfortable. Completely impractical for a lot of purposes. Definitely any type of backpacking, most wild camping, most bushcrafting. Completely impractical. If you are being able to wild camp or bushcraft or things like that relatively close to your vehicle, you know, about a mile would probably be about the max that you'd want to haul it. I mean, you could realistically use that setup, but there's a distinct possibility that I might be leaving that here and caching. I've got a couple decent size dry bags, a couple decent sized containers to where I can put an entire camp that I can just leave here and just show up. I'm going to go ahead and get back to doing this final lashing, and when it's all done, I'll give you the grand tour, and this portion of its development will be complete. All of the work surface lashing has been completed. Now it's just a matter of getting all the ends cut off, and this work surface will be finished. Let me zoom you in here, let you see the lashing. Now granted, it's not pretty, but it's lashing. Folks, if you happen to like the music I used at the beginning of this video, I want you to check out the Pressley Sisters YouTube page. I absolutely fell in love with their music. It's sort of a long story. I'll condense it as fast as I can. My wife started watching a YouTuber, and the channel is called Celebrating Appalachia. And Miss Tipper does a wonderful job presenting all kinds of information about Appalachia in general and her region in particular. She does recipes, she shares stories, she goes on field trips, talks about nature, the Appalachian lifestyle, and everything else. Just fell in love with that. Well, one day I was watching her channel, and all of a sudden her family starts playing music, and it's good. I mean, it was fantastic. And the thing that got me was the fact that, hey, that's not bluegrass. That's older than bluegrass. That's like bluegrass's granddaddy. It's like the missing link between Scotch and Irish music, Scots-Irish music, and bluegrass. It's what transitioned from that evolution from those traditional Irish and Scottish folk songs into what we know as a bluegrass today. And I absolutely loved it because it still had that good 18th century sound to it. And I was amazed. And I found out that the girls have been performing music for about 10 years. And they're in their early mid 20s. And I think they started their YouTube channel when they were 16. So they're probably hundreds of music videos on their YouTube channel. I'd highly encourage you to check out their channel, and if you do any comments, tell them that John from Boonedockery recommended their channel, and I would really appreciate that. I contacted them because I have had a world of problems trying to be able to find uncopywritten music that I felt was appropriate for what I do, and more or less put a sound to my way of doing what I do, and it fits it to a T. Also, be sure to check out Celebrating Appalachia on YouTube, and if you enjoy either of those, the Pressley Girls also have an Instagram account and post all kinds of nice, neat little things. They'll update really quick when they're going to do performances and things like that. If you're in their area of North Carolina, I know they travel, extensively to perform. You might be able to check out some of their concerts. And also, Miss Tipper has an Instagram account, pretty much an Instagram version of Celebrating Appalachia, called Blind Pig and Acorn. Again, I highly encourage you to check those channels out, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I contacted them and told them how I felt about their music, and asked them if there was any way I could possibly have permission to use their music. And they said absolutely, and they were very flattered that I asked them. And this will be the first opportunity since then, it's been a while, that I've been able to use their music. So I hope you like it, because I'm going to be using it quite a bit in the future. Well, folks, it is finished. At least this portion of it. I went through, let's see, I would say almost 200 yards of cordage to do these. And like I said, my lashing isn't pretty, but it should hold pretty firm. It seems pretty sturdy to me. Now, of course, none of this is designed to support human weight. However, my weight could definitely hang from the center of either of those tripods with no problem whatsoever. And the work surface, I'm going to bring some stuff in. I got to figure some stuff out, but this right here will just be a platform to lay something down that is much more rigid, and to fill in these gaps, or to cover over these gaps. but this is a decent platform for me to work with. And you can see how I strung up my spool of jute. It goes over the ridge pole, comes down. So when I pull that, I keep tension here and pull with the other hand, and it straightens it out from curling up. But I am quite pleased with that, and I can't wait to see some potential use of it. Now, I plan on building some type of shelving on one of these, and I want to keep one open just in case, you know, deer season, we get a deer, we can hang it. It might be a little too small for a deer. We got plenty of trees for that, but any type of game we can harvest. We can hang there and process it. But I definitely want to build a shelf of some type on these for water jugs, things like that, that we can access without having to, you know, hang it from a tree, or you know, having to leave it on the ground, things like that. I'm really tired of using logs and things like that, which are never stable. So this is pretty stable, and I'm very pleased with it. I'm going to do some more lashing on the top of the tripods. I think that it's okay, but I want to reinforce that. So I will be doing that in the future. And I had a pretty good night's sleep last night, and I used that LiteFighter, and I'm going to, you know, post a video for this hopefully later on this evening. And as you can see, it's different. Like I have a buddy of mine that's been talking about getting one of these, it's like a cot that's got a tent built into it, and you know, it's pretty bulky, and it's not light. And by looking at the prices of the LiteFighter on eBay, and looking at surplus, used, completely serviceable military cots, should be able to get that set up for about probably close to 200 bucks. And I've seen the other tents that are already on the cot, and those are about 250 bucks, and you can only use them or use it as a cot tent. The LiteFighter, you can use the cot on its own, and a hot tent or a larger tent, you can use the LiteFighter tent on its own. And I think that would probably be a much sounder investment for anyone that was looking for that kind of thing. I'm very pleased with this workstation. Very pleased indeed. Folks, I just wanted to squeeze this in here. This is something I've been very neglectful about. Some people really like the fact that I've been very neglectful about it. And others say, hey John, you really need to plug your channel. So this is my spiel. If you like this video, please click like. If you like the content that I've been producing, please consider subscribing. And if you're subscribing, you got to hit that notifications bell to keep up to date on all my latest videos. Please, if you have any friends whatsoever, anyone you may know that might be interested in the things I've got going on the channel, please share it with them. Let them know about it. And definitely comment. One of my favorite parts about doing this whole thing is receiving and reading the comments, and it's just an absolute blessing to me. And it's also a blessing to all those that read the comments, because there's a wealth of knowledge that's shared through the comments that is nothing more than the icing of the cake of the videos that they're commenting on. Thank you. Well folks, it's finished for now. That Monument of Potential still has a few little finishing touches I'm going to be putting on it, But I'm very, very pleased to have a good, stable work area to where I'm not on the ground. It's a good elevation, it's very sturdy, and even if it's raining, I can hang a tarp from it and work underneath that tarp. So I'm very pleased. It took a little bit of time to doing it, and my hands are incredibly sore from pulling all that cordage tight and tying things off, but it was definitely worth it. Folks, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.